Hello and welcome back to our Leading Women in Hospitality podcast. Today we have Kelly joining us from Village Hotels. Hi Kelly.
Hi Lucy, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, how are you?
Really good. Enjoying this beautiful weather.
I know, so nice. I feel like that's what I'm going to be talking about on every single podcast, is just the weather. English, British, typical.
So true.
But Kelly, for those that don't know you already, do you mind just giving us a bit of an introduction into who you are and what you do currently?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I am Kelly Cronin. I am Revenue Director at Village Hotels. So we've got 33 properties, just UK domestic. Got an amazing chain of hotels. Absolutely adore working for them. Great company. Very diverse with leisure and food and beverage as well, and our co-working space. So it adds a lot of diversity to my role. So I'm Revenue Director here and look after the room sales side of the business. So have a team of 8 working across the hotels, alongside the distribution side as well. So never a dull day, Lucy, that's for sure.
I bet. Sounds very diverse. And in terms of your journey to where you are now, kind of, did you always want to be in hospitality and revenue management, or what was the dream?
I don't know that the dream was revenue management, but it sort of was a dream that was born, I guess, at some time. But as a little girl, I just loved hotels. I loved like going on holiday with my parents and my family, and I always loved the kind of glamour that it brought, and that's something different. And I suppose when I was growing up, hotels always offered something that you didn't get at home. So everything in the room was so exciting, and it was a real time of excitement for me. And I always sort of assimilated with that growing up. So I think getting to the end of school, and it's kind of like you face that time, don't you, thinking, well, what do you want to do? And I was working part-time in a pub style restaurant, just earning like Saturday money, and really enjoyed it. I loved the way everyone pulled together, and even when it was stressful at the end of it, it was just brilliant. And I'd never really felt that in school, like that real sense of teamwork. And so decided to go to college and did kind of study it, I guess. And that was a real eye-opener. Certainly bits that I liked, and certainly bits that I was not so great at. I'm pretty sure the tutor who did the kitchen side of the business would have never let me in a kitchen again.
Definitely not going down the route of a chef.
No, definitely not. And if you remember my family, you'll know that's not my strong point either. But you know what, we had a lot of fun along the way, and some of the people that I met there are still my friends today, which is just brilliant. And so did that for a couple of years, and then was really lucky that I got a trainee management scheme with Paramount Hotels at the time. And they had some great properties, and I ended up living in, which again, brings a whole kind of experience. At 6:30 in the morning, breakfast team haven't turned up. The only place to go is the live-in staff and knock on the door. And the sense of team again was just incredible. And so worked for a couple of years for those completing that program. And I suppose that's where the first kind of love of like that front office and reservation side that I really enjoyed, and I kind of liked being part of a bigger result. And it's not everybody in hotels, are so critically important. We miss out on those housekeeping staff that are just amazing, and even the people in the kitchen, not just the chefs but the people doing the pot washing. Everybody is so important to the overall structure of the business. But for me, it was being part of those results and feel like watching the numbers grow was just a great thing. So spent a little bit of more time doing that, and then went to open a hotel as reception manager, which was actually really funny, because the hotel was due to open and we were about 5 days away from opening, and the ITV rang and said, we actually want to do like a fly on the wall, like a sort of prank show. So it was, I don't even remember Matthew Kelly that used to do like Stars in Their Eyes, but we ended up doing this prank show where people thought they'd won a luxury break, but actually we were there to make their lives as difficult as possible. So if you can imagine, for 6 weeks we were like the worst hotel staff in the world. So they used a mix of actors and hotel staff, but it was quite a memory.
Yeah, I bet.
Knowing like you could be the worst reception person in the world and you were just doing your job. So,
yeah, how did you find that?
It was very funny. The actors were actually kind of an inspiration, really, because they were just so awful.
You aspire to be in the hospitality industry.
So then when we opened the hotel for real, it was kind of a bit weird then, because
doesn't feel right being so nice to you.
Exactly. But that was great, because opening a hotel, I've done it a few times now. There's no buzz like it, and seeing everything come up from the start, it's just incredible. So yeah, did that live for, so this was still front office at the time, and then I did my first stint at Village, so joined Village as the reception manager and worked for a really amazing GM. And if I think back on like my career, I think that most of my amazing opportunities have been because somebody's taken a chance on me. And I was sort of thinking about, why did they do that? And I think where I take a chance on people, or perhaps really see the potential, it's where they show that they're really willing to work hard and they're really willing to listen and learn. And he was such a hard person to work for, but amazing. And so I'm reception manager. The Village Hotels decided at that point, so we're probably around 2001, they said they were going to put revenue managers into all the properties, and we didn't really know what that was because it kind of didn't really exist back then. We had like yielding rates and walk rates, but it was in reservations. And so he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, this is really scary. But we did like a revenue management academy with De Vere and Village for a little while, and that kind of taught all the fundamentals, and then we were sort of from there. But I do remember a day of completing the rooms forecast. It was probably about the 4th time that I'd ever done it, and it wasn't looking very good. And so I thought, this isn't good, but I need to go and tell him it's not going to be very good. So I opened the door and I went in, and you could smoke at the time. So the office was like a haze of smoke. So I went in, like clearing my way through the smoke. I said, we're going to drop the forecast. And he was like, right, okay. So what are we going to do about it? And I was like, what do you mean, what are we going to do about it? And he was like, well, you can't just walk in here and tell me we're going to lose money and not tell me what you're going to do about it. And it was probably one of the biggest tellings off I've ever had in my life. But you know what? It really, like, it stuck with me, because I actually thought, because things like that, it's all the time. It's about, you can learn, you can make mistakes, you can, things don't always go our way, but you've got to keep learning out of it and not get too much about just the woe is me, and find a way to get yourself out of these pickles. And it doesn't always work, but having that mentality of not giving up and constantly looking for the next thing. So he was a great GM to work for, but I only probably saw how great he was when I left. Because was actually pretty hard, but he
you
was
can
a great
see what
guy.
you took away from it after, when you're not under the limelight.
100%. I think sometimes when you reflect back on experiences, sometimes the hardest ones are actually the ones where you've really learned the most. So then after that, I kind of did a number of roles, and at that point, that's where life starts to change a bit, because so the next role that I went to do was with what was Queen's Moathouse, which is now Valor Hospitality. And spent some time with them doing a training role with revenue management, and that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed that. But at the time I just got married, and also found out I was expecting my little girl. And I think for a lot of women, that period of your life, if you do decide to get married, or you decide to have a long-term partner, or you have children, or even if everyone's got commitments, whether it be other family members, or aging parents, or anything, that's when work-life balance really changes. And so my daughter was born at that point, and she's nearly 13 now. So she's not as dependent as she was, and 13 going on 30, definitely.
I was going to say, no longer wants anything to do with you at the moment, I can imagine.
No, exactly. But I think that part, it was around finding people that are going to support you and realise your worth. And in all the roles that I've had, I've worked with some amazing leaders and some amazing women, and women from different backgrounds, some that have had children, some that haven't, some that have made this career their life's vacation, some that have been more recently into it. But the fundamental thing that they've all had in common is that they all realise somebody's worth, and by that they work with you and recognise the fact that there is a life beyond what we do. And our careers are hugely important, and my career is a huge part of who I am, but actually so is my family, and so is not missing out on my little girl growing up and those kind of things. And I think that's something that a lot of women maybe feel they have to compromise on, that you can't have it all. And they feel they have to make a choice between, do you want to be a mom, or do you want to be, do you want to lead this career, or actually, and I guess sometimes it's unfair, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's been a theme through what I've seen since recording these podcasts is you do have the women that have decided not to have children, and then you have got the mothers as well, and on but you can see both sides to that. And I actually just recorded another podcast with Katia from Villa Plus, and she said that she actually wanted to be that woman that her children would inspire to be like. So actually that's how she saw it. But then I've spoken to others and they said, I just don't, hats off to anyone that can juggle it all. So it is a really difficult thing to balance. And like you said, it's all about kind of that support network and making sure that enables you to do that and not miss out on. It's not all about work. Work can be a massive part of your life, but actually family is too, and you shouldn't have to sacrifice one or the other. How did you feel like you juggled that work-life balance?
I think that there's moments where you feel like you're failing at everything, but then there's moments that are really great, whether you see great success or, you know, you're part of something in family life that really stands out, and you really value the time that you do have. And I think, but for me, part of that was because I never felt a high level of pressure from my peers or my leadership team to compromise on that. And I think it's not about, we all work in pressured environments. You know, I have days that I've just got used to never getting to the end of my list. You know, like it's like there's always something to do. But that's amazing. That fits my personality because, you know, I am high like energy. I really like that. What's next? But then in the same way, if you feel that pressure to compromise in your family life, that you can't make your child's sports day, or you know you miss a nativity play every year, and there's always going to be circumstances, but if you find yourself where you're missing all the big things, I don't know, I've been very, very lucky. I've never had to do that. And yes, of course there's things that I've not been able to go to, but it's about compromise, isn't it? And I think that as long as there's some that you feel that you're hitting a balance, and you know, like the colleague you've just talked about, I genuinely hope my daughter's growing up to look at women as a strong part of our, you know, as a strong work network, and really seeing the benefits of you know working hard to create that balance. I would hope anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm sure she definitely will. Definitely has a role model like you. And also what I was just talking on the other podcast about as well is the skills you actually learn being a mother can be brought into your work life as well. So it does actually work on both sides. It's not all negative. Sometimes you hear that negative perception about women coming back to work after maternity leave, maybe not having that same drive, but actually that's just not the case at all.
No, but you know as well, I think that, like I said before, there's lots of women that choose for whatever reason not to have children and still have a lot of other pressures, you know, whether it be you know, family, or it can just be circumstantial, or you know, whatever that might be. And I do think generally we're pretty good at juggling things around, and like we have my partner and I have this conversation all the time, because you finish work for the day and you know I'm talking about this, I'm talking about that, and he's like, can we just finish one thing? I just need to get it before we start talking about the next thing. But I just think by nature that's what we're like, isn't it? That's just like, you know,
yeah, 100 miles per hour.
Before we started this podcast, I think we talked about the weather, your wedding.
Yeah, that sums us up.
But you know what a great skill to have, to be able to, you know, just juggle multiple things. And you know, does the ball drop sometimes? Of course it does. You know, am I a perfect mum? No, not by any stretch of imagination. Am I a perfect leader in this business? No, again, I'm not. But we're all human, aren't we? And I think it's just recognizing that. I would genuinely hope with my team, whether they're male or female, they feel supported and they feel that they're learning every day. And if that's what's happening, then we're in a good place, because as long as people are learning, we're moving forward. And
absolutely,
definitely.
And you're right, it's actually juggling that work-life balance isn't just for the mums. That's especially for any leaders of your level. Having such a high work demand must be challenging, balancing every aspect of your life, regardless if you're a parent or not.
Yeah, and we can't forget the dads in this, because, you know, I was fortunate growing up. My mum didn't really work. I mean, she worked part-time, but I don't ever remember her not being there when I got home from school. And just life's different, isn't it? I don't know many parents who either could or would choose to not, you know, not work, because it's just a bigger part of who we are today. And you know, the dads do take on a hell of a responsibility as well. And I think if you find yourself in that position where you're, you know, you're able to have a really supportive home life, and I'm incredibly lucky. I'm surrounded by, you know, really great people, not only just a partner but friends and family. And you know, it does come down to who you choose to be around, doesn't it? I think in terms of creating that support network.
Yeah, that support network is so important. And do you find, in terms of your professional life at work, do your colleagues, are they your colleagues your support network, or do you have a mentor or a coach that helps with that as well?
So Village is really interesting, because probably over 2/3 of the executive team are women, and it's a great group of ladies. They're all phenomenal leaders in their own right. We are a very strong-minded group, as you can imagine, and we definitely have some good old debates, but we've done some things that have really helped that relationship. We spent the weekend on a canal barge together, navigating like the Cheshire canals, and we've spent the weekend in the Lake District together. And not because that's a Village instigated thing, but because we recognise the value in the friendship that we have, and actually how much stronger it makes us together. And so I think by having a lot of women specifically in the leadership team, I think some of those shared experiences have made it easier to create a support network, which is immensely supportive. But, you know, in previous roles as well, this is a hospitality by nature does have a strong female representation, which is amazing. And I think we have a real responsibility to make sure we keep that going. You know, I like grew up in hotels and have not, you know, come right the way through the ranks, and have done all the sort of changing the beds and taking the plates and doing it. And because that for me was a fundamental part of my growth and getting to this point in my career, I think I still utilize some of that information. But all the way through that, there's been strong women in roles. And, you know, it's a great thing that we've got this in this industry, that we should focus on retaining and making sure we aren't losing people out because they can't balance work life, you know, pressures, because that would be really, really sad. Because I actually think we are quite unique in that way, that a lot of industries are far more male dominated. I think maybe our CEO would like us to, you know, AJ, I think he loves having all those strong women around him.
Yeah, when you get into your debates, maybe not so much. But yeah, has that been your experience then, that actually there has been a lot of female leaders? Because I'm not sure that's the case in all of the industries. Maybe kind of hotels it might be, but I think there's maybe other industries that is maybe not the case, maybe an airline or something like that. So from your experience, has there still been quite a lot of female leaders?
Yeah, but I think as well, whenever I've applied to work somewhere, the leadership team and the ethos of the company has been part of my like validation process for wanting to work with that company. And I think that, you know, I can remember having maybe 2 or 3 interviews where I've walked away thinking, actually that's not right for me, because their culture doesn't fit well with me. And it's not that it's right or wrong, it's just not what I would, you know, assimilate to. And I think if you feel something about where you're working for, if you feel those values, and, you know, you feel valued, and they match your own values, then you will naturally feel like you're fitting in better and able to do better. I know I do my best when I am, you know, able to make decisions and have autonomy and structured conversations, and there's a respectful environment. I know that's when I'm at my best. So therefore I need to look for that. And, you know, likewise, when I look for members for my team, if a vacancy comes up, I always look for diversity. So if we've got somebody who already exists who fits that kind of mold, then we probably don't want somebody else the same, because otherwise we won't create that, you know, that safe place to have like debate and differences of opinion. And we definitely do. We've got, you know, a whole range of characters, all amazing in their own right, but all very, very different.
And you do need that.
Yeah, that creates great things as well.
Yeah, you're I don't get how anyone would be able to work for a company that doesn't have the same values, because ultimately at some point you're going to clash, and that'll be clear that your values don't align, and then someone's going to move on at that point. And you can't have a team full of people that all want to aim for the same things, because again, then you just need that full circle of different types of people, so they're aiming and striving to be in different places of their lives. So yeah, it's definitely true. And do you think there has been any key milestones throughout your career that have kind of excelled you and taken you to that next level?
I think that having the balance of doing like having that experience in operations gave me people skills that were really integral, because I might not be customer facing now, but I have lots of different people that I interact with, and the how you do that and how you learn to work with others is really important. And I think that's where our front facing teams get that experience every day, and it really builds confidence as well to be able to talk to people you don't know in those early stages of your career. And I think moving out of RevMan application and going into a training role was actually also really good, because it challenged some of the thoughts on the theory. And you get a constant flow of people hearing this information for the first time that very quickly becomes common sense to you, because you're doing it every single day. And there was some really great challenges and thought-provoking conversation that came out of that, because as you move on through time, you forget how much information you've retained, but this is brand new. So I think doing that, I always really enjoy that. And whenever we do like team meetings or workshops, or I love that bit where you get that two-way, actually tell me what you think, like what could be different, what would be different, why should we do it a different way? I really enjoy that. So that training role was really key. And then I think moving into that first central role, where you're then managing teams of people, is also quite a milestone, because when you've been an application person, and again we're talking a long time ago, it's a real mindset change to move out of a single unit where not only are you the revenue person, but you're also part of the management team and you have other responsibilities, whether it's duty manager or whatever that is. But that step change is quite significant, and then the step change again to manage multiple flows of people is again quite a milestone. And each of them takes you a little bit of time to adjust, because you have to let go of things and you have to think about new opportunities. But without each one of those, I don't think I would be the kind of person that I am today. And I think every one of those, I can think of every role that I've had that I've just been lucky enough to have some really great experiences and diverse content. I love where I am today, because we make decisions, and that's what it is. We have a lot of ability to do that. We have a problem today, we can solve it tomorrow. We don't have a massive infrastructure. There's not we're not working with thousands of stakeholders and things, so it's a very different environment to some others. But then equally working within those bigger organizations is also really insightful, because again that influence and impact becomes a big part of your role as well. So there's been a few milestones, Lucy, definitely.
Sounds
and a few stories.
No, love it, keep them coming. And obviously you've said that you've had to kind of adapt to different roles depending on what you're doing at that time. What do you think are the key skills that you've had to learn over those years, and I guess what comes more naturally and what has been a little bit more challenging, would you say?
So I think I am a very black and white person, no shocker, because anyone I think doing numbers, and I've had to learn to find the grey. In that I am quite headstrong, and I know that, and can be not single, maybe I was a bit single-minded certainly in the early years, but I think working with people and that isn't my natural sort of skill set, is the numbers and the analytics. And I think that for me has been something that I've really had to learn over time, those leadership qualities, and definitely with some learnings along the way, definitely, and realizing that not everyone's going to do what you want them to do at the time you want them to do it.
Influencing skills.
Exactly. But I keep learning at that, I keep working at that, and I genuinely hope my team choose to work with me as much as I choose to work with them, because I would hope that as time has gone on that's that I've really improved on that part of that side of me, that leadership bit.
And are there like training schemes that you go into to be able to help with that, or do you think you just learn on the job?
Sometimes I think it's really good to take yourself out of your job environment, and I mean, all the time I would look for things, just not even necessarily industry related, because there's on LinkedIn, you'll know yourself, you're very active yourself, but there's so many great platforms of just like 15 minutes here or 20 minutes there, and real thought-provoking things. And even if you go to events, if you go on Eventbrite and things like that, there's great events held in the communities just to increase your knowledge about certain things, and to give you just some food for thought. It might not necessarily be everything about your own industry, but I think it's give you inspiration. And some of my biggest learnings, I think, have been from doing that. And of course you learn on the job as well, but I do think making time to educate yourself and to give yourself that opportunity is really important. I would certainly sorry, please.
No, sorry, carry on.
I'd certainly recommend to anyone to join forums on LinkedIn, and really get involved, and just join, have them on in the background if you're doing something else. And quite often I'll do that, and just if something makes you stop typing, you're like, oh, do you know, that's a really good thing. And I try and share that as well. Some of the best ones that you do can be related to your industry, but actually not your subject area at all. But it's certainly like listening to a podcast in your ear, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't realise how much information you're absorbing from that. When you're busy, you actually are still paying attention, or when it piques your interest, that's when it's really good. And you're right, I think at going to conferences, listening to webinars, whatever it may be, just hearing that it's not just you having that challenge and that someone else is overcoming it can be quite refreshing, and then you can dig into it a bit deeper after that point, which is good. But yeah, so kind of that's been the main thing that's helped you learn those different skills over the years when you've had to.
Sorry, it's just always looking for that next thing, it just not to stop, and by thinking that you kind of have got to the point where you know everything. And I think that as long as you keep looking for inspiration, and sometimes that's why taking yourself out of industry. Some of the best speakers that I've ever heard have been nothing to do with hotels, but really giving you food for thought. And some of the best little sessions that I've attended, just dialed into, have been nothing at all again to do with hotels, but everything's transferable in some way, just to make your brain think a bit differently.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk a lot about how someone enters the industry, whether that is a qualification that they have to do and then go into revenue management, but I think it's clear that isn't necessarily the route people have to go down. But there isn't too much conversation around qualifications or further training further along your career. Do you think that would be something that would be quite helpful, or do you just think there's all these other resources that you can use that is not really needed?
I think it's hitting the balance of the theory versus reality. And I think if there's anything that training role that I did for 3 or 4 years really kind of brought to my attention, it was that. And there's the theory of something is always a great thing, because you're learning that black and white, but then the reality is the grey we spoke about before. Nothing ever quite conforms to how it should. And I think that there are so many brilliant institutions out there offering, formal qualifications. But I think it's understanding that formal qualification doesn't necessarily give you 100% of the ability to do the job, but then therefore doing the job, as well, there's things that you need to kind of learn over time. And when I joined the hospitality industry, we were lucky that there was a lot more layers within the hotels that you can move from fairly seamlessly. And if I think about my first job in a hotel to being a revenue manager, it was 5 years. It was not a long time at all, having done that training management scheme and into front office, into reservations. And I kind of sometimes, I suppose, I worry a little bit about some of those pathways, because the layers aren't there. We've had a lot of a lot of industry cutbacks following COVID, right? Rightly so. We've had a lot of investment across the industry to keep our great hotels open. So there isn't necessarily those fluid opportunities. So it's just finding them. And I still firmly believe today, though, if somebody is really willing to work hard and be open-minded and really want to learn, the opportunities are there. I think there's some really good qualifications you can do whilst you're working. A couple of my team are currently undergoing that at the moment, and enjoying that balance of learning the theory and also seeing the real world alongside. And in actual fact, is that not the best? That's probably the best way, because you're getting that immediate balance of both.
But that's a challenge with any kind of training course. The theory is amazing, but you don't learn it really until you actually get in and do the job.
Well, real life takes over, doesn't it? That's the thing as well. I mean, we've all heard some brilliant things and thought, oh my word, that was amazing. 48 hours later, it's like you've slept twice since then. And, it's how what you do with it in that time. Well, definitely.
Well, when you listen to a webinar and they tell you something that you can do, and it sounds so simple when you hear just the theory of it, and then reality of doing it, it's like, okay, it's not as straightforward as maybe that first sounded, but the joys of training, I guess.
But do you know what? If genuinely, when I train something or do like a workshop session, or do something with the hotel teams, if they walked away and do one thing as a result of that, I think that's been pretty good. Yeah, because definitely. Something's changed, and as to be the person who's driven that change, that's a good thing. And I think it's just understanding everyone's experience in that is going to be very different. But yeah, if they just take away one, or even maybe two, two things,
maybe a couple.
Yeah, exactly.
And in your team now, obviously you've got a team of revenue management. When you've recruited, are there particular things that you tend to look out for? Do you think there's kind of the base skill someone needs to have, and then the rest you can teach?
Yeah, I mean, so it really depends on the vacancy and kind of what the dynamic is. I mean, since being at Village, I've recruited maybe 3 times, and every time I've looked for somebody different, even though it's the same job role. But previously, I think when you're recruiting leaders, I think that's quite challenging, because you do need a base knowledge there to be able to support the team. It's probably a little bit harder to be thinking about training somebody in that, because without very key transferable skills, it would take that person an awful long time, and probably be quite a frustrating process for them if they are of a leadership standard but don't have the level of knowledge to be able to lead the team, if that makes sense. Whereas I think if it's a more junior role, honestly, if somebody captures me with an amazing personality and can give me examples where they've really shown their sort of the start of something great. And so I interviewed somebody a little while ago, and they'd seen an opportunity in Meme Tights, and they wanted to build this package, like a sort of like a bit of a luxury package. So the GM wasn't too keen. He's like, no. So this person, every time they sold one of these packages, because they weren't allowed to buy the stock in, they would go down to Tesco Express and buy the content of this package. So like the roses, the bubbles, and everything for the bath. Right. It's like a city centre hotel, like a mid-scale hotel. And there was a bit of me that thought, do you know what? You had the tenacity to have an idea. Somebody says, and you've seen it through. And for that, I mean, I just thought, okay, do you know what? Credit where credit's due. Like, you are determined to make that work. And I thought that would be a really determined character. And sure enough, he absolutely is. And his ability to see things through to the end is incredible. So yeah, I think if someone is able to capture that strength of personality, and we underrate that. Personality and character are a huge part of our industry. And
also that concept that obviously you make data-driven decisions, but a lot of it you have to back yourself and your intuition of making things work, and that is just evident that person had that and was like, I'm going to prove you that this is the right thing to do. And even if those things don't work out, like exactly, even if it didn't work out, still just showing that you'd taken the courage to do it that's a really interesting story.
It scares me sometimes how much people don't want to show their character because they don't think it's the right thing, or they don't think it's appropriate, but actually, like, that we have a team touch point every day, and we do like quiz afternoon. You know, we've had like a long month, we've done the big task force, set up like a quiz hour where we'll do like a bit of an online quiz. I can tell you've never seen competition like you've seen on this online quiz. But that's because we've got real strength of character in the team. You know, they're not scared to be themselves. And I would really encourage anybody, just be who you are. Like, you know, people love that, and making things kind of real. And, you know, like, it's just, not everything is formal. When I joined hotels, the GM was like Mr. whatever, and we had to take him tea in the morning from reception. People don't join this industry to work like that. They join this industry because of the great people in it, with amazing characters.
Yeah, and it goes back to that matching those values, like you said earlier. Kind of, if you are just yourself and show your character, you'll find a company that matches that. And if you get rejected from somewhere because of that, it's probably not the best one for you anyway.
Yeah, totally. But if you think as well, going back to motherhood, you tell your kids all the time, don't you? Be who you are, be proud of who you are. We all need to stand by that in adult life.
Yeah, but then in your mind something changes when you go into the working world and you feel that you have to be a certain person, and that's very different for other people. Everyone thinks that they should be something different maybe. But it's interesting. Yeah, you're so right. From a little age you're always told be yourself.
Not being yourself is the most exhausting thing ever, and we've already got enough stress going on. Can you imagine not being able to just project who you are?
Yeah, you spend so much of your life at work, so you just need to be comfortable in who you are and be with a company that appreciates that at the same time.
100%.
Absolutely. And as a woman in the industry, apart from, I guess, being a mother, the challenges that may have come with that, have you come across any unique challenges as being a woman, or have you heard any stories that other people have faced?
I think I found it more challenging when I was younger, but I think some of that comes down to strength of character as you get a little bit older. And, you know, you want to be successful. And I think that operationally, I found that harder, because I think, you know, back then, and maybe even up to today, the kitchen particularly is a very male-dominated environment. You know, and the food and beverage side tends to be. And you know, it's changing over time, but I think that's where I definitely found the more like impactful male-female dynamic. But I think generally there's a lot of respect as well in our industry. There's a lot of respect because we do have, as I said before, you know, so many strong women within it. I think as women, though, we also have a role to play in this, because, you know, I'm sort of in my mid-40s now, and I've been lucky with the career that I've had, and I feel like, are we really taking that responsibility of making sure that we're giving people the same experience? And, you know, I would be mortified if we were having women joining our industry at a young age and leaving because they're struggling to find a place, or they're, you know, struggling with a sort of dynamic that they don't feel is appropriate, or they don't feel is right. And we've got a real chance to change that. And, you know, I can remember being in a hotel and your area manager would come around, and it would be like your mother-in-law coming for dinner. Everyone would be like, you know, like really quite scared. And then when you get to the point where you're doing those roles, and, you know, I would, it's just to think that hotel teams would be thinking that of you is kind of just alien to me. I just think we've got a real chance here to make a difference, to make this something an industry people really want to do. And do you know what, there genuinely might not be enough platforms to do that, and you know, to mentor women leaders with women joining this industry, and show them that it is possible. It's not unreachable. Everyone's human, you know, even doesn't matter what job you do, we're still very attainable as people, you know, just normal.
But that's like the whole purpose of podcasts like this, or any other resources like placement years or whatever it may be. It's so important to make sure that the perception of the hospitality industry isn't still super old-fashioned, and people don't think that it's this really tough industry to be in, with really long hours, really bad pay, or only operational roles within it. Just making sure that it gets the exposure that's needed to make sure that we're still getting those people at entry level joining the industry. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I do as well. It'd be great if we saw some more platforms of getting that face to face as well, because I see quite a lot of mentoring that is, you know, you can speak to somebody, but you and I doing this on video call, I mean, you know, we've met numerous times, and the sense of personality in that person, you don't get so much. But having some face to face events of actually integrating current leaders with, you know, students or younger people would be great, because I think it become very clear very quickly that we are desperate to make sure we don't lose those skills coming into this industry, because hotels are great. You know, I wouldn't do anything else. I love it. It's phenomenal. Interestingly, my daughter doesn't want to do it at all.
Really?
She wants to be a vet. I don't know what I did wrong there.
That's brilliant. But like what you said earlier, the interest often comes from something about your childhood, whether that is that you absolutely just love that experience that you got. I take it maybe your daughter loves pets.
She does have a, but she loves hotels as well, believe me.
Oh, okay.
She's definitely a holiday girl. I mean, I do think what I hear from her is her desire to travel. And that is amazing for me, because, you know, I think maybe that's where I've influenced her, is more around, actually, I don't want to work in hotels, but I do want to see the world. I want to travel. I want to do it when I'm younger. And she, you know, she already is formulating those thought processes, which is, you know, brilliant. I'd love her to be able to do that and enjoy that. But I think it's just creating, I don't know, an influence of just, it's not about telling somebody what to do or how to formulate career. It's just giving them some like help and support really along the way, I suppose.
Yeah. And have you ever been a mentor or a coach to anyone?
So we have an internal village program that we recognise people within the business that want to develop. So I was really lucky to have a mentee last year, and that was a really good experience. And she, you know, she's very sort of focused on learning more in her role, being better at what she does. And I think for her, she didn't necessarily want a route into revenue management, because she wanted to go on to do some travel and to do some other things before she committed to a long-term career. But what she did want to do was learn the leadership skills that would help her in her role. And we had some really good conversations about that. And I think along the way, inevitably, wherever you've got teams, then you do, you know, form a mentor style role. You know, and I think in this role and previous roles, building those teams has been a big part of the success that we've seen. Just, you know, building a skill set, but also, like we said, that character, that not creating a team of yes people that all have opinions and, you know, great things to say is good. But I really enjoy it. Training has always been something that I love to do, and I'm very happy being in front of hotel teams, you know, opening up conversation and talking. So we definitely, the more opportunity we have to do that, the better, really.
Yeah, I think someone reached out to me a few months ago asking about if I knew of any mentors within the industry, because they didn't really know where to go, and they'd been in the industry quite a long time. So and at that point I hadn't really heard of any mentorship programs, but since then I've heard of a few more. And I think it's just making sure that that's more accessible for people that maybe don't want to talk to somebody within their business and actually want to go external and have that person that isn't going to necessarily even say anything back to them, but just someone to talk through your thoughts and have someone go, it's okay, or completely understand. So I think it is good for more and more people to be getting involved in that side of things.
I think as well, there's definite value in having those like review posts, because we are really busy, you know, in our day-to-day jobs. But I think when you have that discussion with somebody individually about their own performance and their creating the room, not only just to look at the numbers, but to say what's next, where's this going. You know, I would never want any of my team to leave because they were unhappy. They should be leaving because they've got their next opportunity, and if it's their next opportunity, then let me help them find it. You know, that's where we should be at. So that
feedback process is very important.
Yeah, really, and being able to take it as well, you know, going back to that grey area.
Yeah, you can ask the question, you don't necessarily get the answer that you're looking for. And Kelly, just I guess to a couple of more questions before we finish. Has there been any women in the industry that have inspired you throughout your career in particular?
Yeah, a huge amount. I think going back to years ago, the HR director at the time at Queen's Moat was a very strong, and still is today, a very, very strong individual woman. And she was also my leader at the time when I had my daughter, so I saw a very different side of her. She was so structured and so incredible at what she did, and very well respected. And I remember thinking, like, that's amazing. That's the sort of person that I want to be. I think in my last role before Village, we had a very, very strong commercial leader who again was very well respected, very, very, very structured, but human again. And I think that's the theme that's coming through. And then within Village, as I said, my executive team peers, I respect immensely every single one of them for their strength and the roles that they undertake, and their ability to not only be phenomenal at their jobs, but also in the way that they've supported others. And for me personally, the last 6 months has been a fairly big challenge, both personally and at work, through an injury, and I could not have asked for more. And I think that inspiration comes in many different forms. It's somebody being great at their job, but it's somebody showing their vulnerable side, it's somebody being human, and it's somebody being supportive. And those women that I've had the pleasure of working with have just been absolutely great. And actually, bizarre, whilst I've worked for some really great males as well, I would say it's mostly the women that I've really, really sort of stepped back and thought
that's good to hear. I think we naturally, as women, you don't always get that support. Actually, there can be the other side of things, but it's so nice to hear that you've had so many lovely supportive women, and especially, like you said, during difficult times with an injury, that's when you kind of realise the people that really do check in on you and make sure that you're okay, not just in work but just in yourself as well, which is lovely.
Yeah, it truly is. And I hope, as I say, I hope we continue that. But I'd like to think that you get what you give, and I hope that I reciprocate that. And if you culture an environment like that, where when things are difficult, it becomes about moving forward and helping each other, then that surely gains momentum. And I think that's like say, I think that's where I've really felt the benefit. And that's why every job that I've done, every role that I've done, I've stayed in for quite a long time and been able to grow within it. But because the culture was very, very strong to, like I said, to my own beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a culture like that, you've won, really. That's all you can ask for. Definitely. And last question, I like to end every podcast in the same way, but what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self or anyone thinking of joining the industry? What's the one bit of advice you'd give to that person?
I would say that always try and push yourself beyond what you think your own capabilities are, because we don't apply for roles, or we don't do things because we look at a list of, I don't know, the attributes associated with that role, and you don't look at the 8 you can do, you look at the 2 that you can't. And actually, if I could give myself a bit of advice, I'd have worried far less about the 2 that I couldn't and focus far more on the 8 that I could. And I think that I probably sometimes was my own worst enemy at holding myself back, because with, like I said before, with strength of character and a desire to really want to learn and be better, those 2 things you'll overcome in a heartbeat. So that's a bit of advice I would give. I think for people coming out of school and into this industry, I would just urge them to really learn more about it. If you love hotels and you think this could be for me, as you said, Lucy, it's not all necessarily one-dimensional that it might look like. There's so many things that happen behind the scenes that you could be a part of, that you could really be an inspiration in the future to somebody else. And those are the bits that we need to make sure we get profiling on. So yeah, I'd say don't rule us out until you know.
Go and work with Kelly for the day.
Happily in my office at the bottom of the garden.
Brilliant. And do you think there's any resources or qualifications or training or any of that side of things that you'd refer people to do, or just take that leap and just go in hotels and get some experience? what routes would you
Honestly,
go?
I try and do both. I think first of all, like going and getting the experience gives you that, like, that view of, is this for me? You know, it's probably not for everybody. And actually,
Mhm.
do the things that you love, does it make you want to see more, or actually does it make you want to walk away? And I think there are really good professional bodies out there. You know, there's new, like HOSPA, HSMAI. You know, there's lots of industry bodies to be able to help. Many of those have education programs, but I think if you ended up in the right role, that would become an option within the role that you do. And learning on the job and hitting the balance of the theory as well. Most hotel companies recognise the value in internal training programs and growth programs, because we do have this challenge of people coming into the industry. So find one that has that, if that's what you want to do, to be able to really grow. And, you know, as we say, align your roles with what you want to do, with your own what you want to achieve.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think, yeah.
Good tips, thank you. And yeah, thank you for kind of sharing your journey into the role that you're in now, what that involves, and any tips along the way. And I think it's clear that you've created this culture within your team, which just sounds amazing. And I think I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those little debates.
Well, me too. Me too. I'll be sending this podcast to them, saying, can you just confirm that's okay?
Yeah. Can you just confirm this for me? Brilliant. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you on here today, Kelly. I'm sure many will enjoy listening to this one, including some of your team potentially.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much for having me, Lucy. I appreciate the invite as well.
Really good. Anything to add that maybe I've not spoken about? Hopefully we've covered everything, but just in case I haven't.
No, I think so. All good.
Yeah, perfect. Well, yeah, thanks, Kelly.
Thanks a lot.
I hope everyone enjoyed listening to this one, and I'll see you in the next one.